Upgrading parts on your bike can make a massive difference to ride quality, but they don't have to be expensive. In today's episode, we're going to be upgrading our Carrera Vanquish that we bought from Halfords, a great example of an entry-level bike with less than £100 worth of stuff. And we're going to see how much better it rides. The first thing you might want to consider changing to improve the ride quality of your bike is handlebars. Now, this is a perfect example of an entry-level bike that's come with kind of strange shaped handlebars. These are anatomic, so they lock your hand into a position on the bars. They have a massive drop, so when you do want to use the drops and sit on them, it's really low down, which is not great for some people. They're very long reach, so the distance in between the tops and the controls are very long, so it makes your bike even longer than it could potentially be if you had a more comfortable shaped bar. In my opinion, the Dada RHM. This is a fantastic handlebar shape. Pardon the horrible, dirty, sticky example I have here. This is a fantastic handlebar shape that ranges from super cheap, £13.50 we found these online for the alloy version, 0-100, right up to the carbon version, which is super expensive, couple of £100, but they all have identical shape. So, I would recommend finding one of these in the correct width. To find the right width, you want to measure across your acromion process, which is where your shoulders are. So essentially, your handlebars want to be about the same width as your shoulders. The reason these handlebars are very good is not just because they're cheap, but they have a very short and shallow drop shape to them. So, like I said, distance in between here is very short, so it shortens the bike, which is great for people, and the drop isn't too extreme. They also have a nice curve to the drop, so you can put your hands in a multitude of positions instead of being locked into the shape that those bars give you. And there's other entry-level bike examples here as well. Our lovely Walmart bike has this classic drop kind of shape, but it's a very short drop, but really long reach. So this is going to be pushing you out really, really far, and it won't be that comfortable. Our much-loved Triban RC120, they have actually done a bit better here. The handlebars are a nice shape, but they're still a centimetre longer in reach and a centimetre lower in drop as well. So even with a bike like this, which has been thought about carefully by the producers, the manufacturers, there's still room for improvement. So I would recommend the Dada bar. If you are going to change your handlebars, we have a video on how to set up your handlebars correctly, and you'll find that in the video description down below. Upgrade number 2 is bar tape. Most entry-level bikes will come with cork bar tape. Now, some people don't mind how it feels. I personally don't. It's a little bit slippery, particularly the cheaper stuff that is installed on bikes like this. It doesn't last that long, and when you unwrap it, it doesn't come off nicely, and a load of tape ends up still stuck to your bar, and then you can't re-wrap it. But there's a solution. Polyurethane tape. This example here is made by BBB or Triple B, and it cost us £20 from the bike shop round the corner. You can, however, get this for about £15 online at the moment, so it's not too expensive, and it makes a massive difference. This particular tape is called Flex Ribbon, and it has a grippy surface on the outside, a rubbery feel to it, and the back, instead of having a line of sticky double-sided tape which gets stuck onto everything and then causes your tape to rip in half when you take it off, it just has a slightly rubbery feeling strip down the middle. So it stays in place, but when you want to unwrap it and rewrap it again, for whatever reason, you can. Another benefit of this tape is that it lasts absolutely ages. This is what I have on all of my bikes. The price comparison to stuff like Supercaz and Styrkr, it's almost half the price. So it's a win. BBB Flex Ribbon, check it out. We have no affiliation to BBB. Upgrade number 3 is tyres. Now, if you bought an entry-level bike, it's probably not got the best tyres on in the world. They'll be okay, they'll probably grip, they probably have enough puncture protection, and they'll roll fast enough. But the quality of your ride can improve significantly if you put some more supple tyres on. Tyre technology has got really good in the last few years, and you can get some excellent tyres for not that much money. For the sake of comfort and grip, tyres have generally been getting wider. So most people are riding 25mm, 28mm, or even 30mm tyres. The entry-level bikes that we bought recently came with 25mm and 28mm tyres, which is nice to see. I definitely prefer a wider tyre, particularly as we're based in the UK where the roads are questionable quality. So if you are going to make this upgrade, consider the width and maybe try something a little bit wider than you usually would. There are loads of different tyre brands to choose from, and they all have similar product lines. What I would recommend is looking for something a little bit more supple if you want ride quality. So We're sponsored by Hutchinson. This is a Hutchinson Fusion 5. This is actually the all-season version, but you can get a Hutchinson Fusion 5 Performance, which is super supple, feels really nice to ride, for about £25 on the internet. Continental, you can also get a Grand Prix for about £30–35. And Michelin, they do a tyre called the Pro Race 3. I think you can get that for about £20 online, which is a great deal, although they are really supple and really thin, so you might end up getting a few more punches than usual. Do some research, read some reviews, assess the kind of riding that you'll be doing. Are you riding through London and you're going to be at high risk of punctures? Maybe go for something with a little bit more puncture protection. If you live in Spain and you have super smooth, well-maintained roads, then something supple like the Michelin will be fantastic. Whichever tyre you end up choosing, it's probably going to be significantly better riding than what comes stock on an entry-level bike. Upgrade number 4, tubeless. Now, this is going to be a bit contentious. Not everyone likes tubeless, they think it's a faff, they've had a bad experience with it. But in terms of ride quality, tubeless can transform how your bike feels. It's super smooth, but there are some caveats. In order to upgrade to tubeless, you need tubeless valves, tubeless tape, and sealant. Essentially, you're going to create a seal around your wheel and the tyre so there's no inner tube inside, and the sealant, which you squirt inside, should seal any holes if you have a puncture. One massive benefit of going tubeless is you can run lower pressures without the risk of pinch puncturing. So when you hit a bump or a pothole and the tyre squashes the inner tube against the rim, creating a snakebite puncture or a pinch puncture. Tubeless, that becomes less of a risk, and you always have a shot at it sealing. There are some complications with doing this upgrade though. You officially need tubeless ready tyres and a tubeless ready wheel set to do this properly. However, we have an inkling you can make quite a few non-tubeless ready wheels and tyres work tubeless, which we're going to cover in a future episode, so subscribe to this channel for more. If you don't have the wheels, tyres or know-how to do tubeless, try this option instead. Upgrade 4.5, the light or latex inner tube. Both of these options make a big difference in terms of ride quality and for not that much more money than a standard inner tube. This is a Tubelito, an ultralight inner tube, and this one in particular is quite expensive. They're about £20 to £25. However, there are versions of this made by other companies, and if you look on the internet, type in Superlight inner tube, there's some for £5.50, some for around the £10 mark. There's a version you can get from AliExpress as well. However, you'll have postage costs and probably quite a long period of time if you order them, and then they have to be shipped from China. It's essentially it's kind of weird orange inner tube. They'll make your bike feel fantastic, but there's one big problem. They don't stretch very much. So the packet here for the road inner tube says 18 to 28 millimeter. Usually, if you bought a butyl inner tube, so a normal inner tube, and you put it in a tire which was slightly too big, it will just stretch to fill the space. This won't. I've put a few of these road inner tubes into 30 millimeter tires, thinking that they would just stretch like a normal tube, and then they'd just punctured. Not ideal, so you have to be really careful to make sure you get the right size tube for your tire. The puncture protection I found to be okay. Some of the early versions of these had issues with the valve and were losing air, but I think the latest versions are a lot better. Latex tubes have different problems. They run fantastically smooth. They're a little bit heavier than a Tubelito, but they lose air very quickly. So you generally have to pump them up every day, every other day to maintain your high pressure. On the plus side though, they are quite puncture resistant, more so than a butyl tube. So because they're made of such squishy, stretchy material, they actually perform really well in terms of puncture protection. The highly elastic trait of latex is also what makes it potentially less prone to punctures, as often the material will stretch around the offending puncture item, nail, glass, or thorn, rather than pierce by it. That is according to Vittoria's vice president, who make these inner tubes though. So take it with a pinch of salt. The conclusion here is, and having tested them, they both increase your ride quality significantly on your bike, and it is less faff than tubeless. So you've got this option, just bear in mind that the increased cost is multiplied the more you puncture, so bear that in mind.
What have you done to it? Bars and tape are obvious. Tyres, definitely. I'm surprised it does actually ride like a bike now. It's super smooth, and to be honest, it rides like a bike that is significantly more expensive than this is. Good work.